So we are reading the Midrash on our double Torah portion we read tonight, Mattot-Masei. Before we start on the Midrash, though, if you join me and read the text of Devarim 8, verse 10, which says, "You will eat and be satisfied. You'll bless Adonai your God for the good land He has given us." Let's do that. Abba, we have eaten and we're satisfied. We thank you for the land. In Yeshua's name, we thank you. Amen.
Amen. Sorry, guys, I forgot to move that. Go ahead and start.
Okay.
You forgot.
Yeah. I think you just didn't want to. You didn't want to have to answer the mitzvah in the portion question. I get it.
I see. That's my always answer.
Okay, we'll see how that works out for you. We'll see how that works out for you. Is it 2 and 6 for Mattot-Masei, 5 and 9, 7 and 7, or 7 and 11? Rolling bones.
I can't remember this. I'm going to vote A. I can't remember. But
okay.
I used to have it all memorized, but I can't remember this. So I think A.
So Jim's already guessed 7 and 7. Are you gonna guess something different, or are you gonna agree with JD?
I can't remember.
Well, for what I could see and remember, I'm gonna go B, but it's torn between A and B for me.
Okay.
But I'll go B.
All right.
I just can't remember.
Well, the first one out is the one that no one voted for. The next one out is B. Sorry.
That's all right.
So it's either 7 and 7 or 2 and 6. And it looks like JD guessed correctly.
Yeah.
Good job.
I used to have them all memorized, but maybe I'll get it back.
So here's the breakdown listing by FFOZ. First two here are from Mattot, not to break one's word even if undertaken without an oath, and to observe the nullification of vows, which are the specific for the unmarried daughter as well as from the foreign wife. So of the six mitzvot from Masei, to establish Levitical cities is the first one. And here's two more. Get the print. I can see now that on the screen it's going to look small on that screen over there. Not to execute the guilty without trial. I'll read the kind of the fine print there. There shall be cities of refuge for you from the revenger, and one who killed someone is not to die until he stands before the congregation in right ruling. 35 verse 12. And to protect an inadvertent manslayer in the city of refuge.
Okay.
So those are from that. So you're not allowed to kill someone who is allowed to be there. Not everyone who is they use the term manslayer here would probably be close to manslaughter in the sense of typically negligently causing a death is different from murder.
Didn't mean to hit him that hard. What you're saying.
Yeah.
But I noticed it said he has to hit him with his hand. But if you hit him with a stone or a club, that's murder.
Right. Well, I know someone who who's convicted of manslaughter and served. Well, he was an 85% sentence for a 20-year sentence for manslaughter. It was pushing someone, and the individual hit their head and died as a result. And he served, I guess, 16 years for that. 18 years, excuse me. Somewhere in that neighborhood, 17, 18, I can't remember. So next Masei mitzvot are to not to let a witness in a capital crime serve as judge in a trial. Now this is kind of odd. FFOZ has a further explanation of this in the next slide. the text being cited says, whoever kills someone has to be put to death as a murderer by the mouth of witnesses, but only one witness does not bear witness against someone to die. So this doesn't really track in the same sense. 30 verse 3b in the bottom says, no person shall be put to death on testimony of one witness. So it takes two witnesses. That's standard. But here's FFOZ's explanation. It says, the sages understood the seemingly superfluous phrase as a prohibition against allowing a witness to also serve as a judge in a capital trial. A judge who was a witness to a murder would have to excuse himself from the bench. He would enter testimony as a witness, but could not either argue either to defend or convict the accused.
Isn't that jurisprudence in American law?
So I got it, Eric, honestly.
What FFZ says, is that how Rambam explains it too?
Well, it doesn't seem, well,
There's just no explanation for it.
yeah, there's basically like, this is just taken from this. This is what this text
I'm not,
says.
we studied the 613 many times, and I don't remember any Jewish commentary saying anything like that. So where did FFOZ get that?
Well, you should back up, I think, and say, where did the sages get not to let a witness in a capital crime serve as a judge in a trial from the verse that says don't allow somebody to put to death by a mouth of a single witness?
Right. That's the first question. Then the second question is, where did we pull this out of? This explanation. How does he know the sages understood it to mean that?
Well, because it's drawn from the verse that doesn't say that.
Very nice.
Love it.
Out of thin air.
Love it.
Yeah, isn't it? Sounds like shades of one rabbi to give more credence to authority to his argument, quotes refers to another ancient rabbi who was prominent to give more weight to his argument. And the ancient rabbi didn't say anything like that.
Well, I think it's okay. I mean, in terms of the actual mitzvah, or the actual text of chapter 35, verse 30, is clear about not putting to death someone as a single witness. You can't be, one witness is not good enough to put someone to death.
If a witness was a judge, that would be the same thing as having the testimony of one witness judging.
Well, the idea of not letting a witness in a capital crime serve as a judge in the trial, that makes good sense.
Yes.
But it's not
Because it's an automatic conviction. Yeah.
No person shall be put to
Makes
death
good
on the
sense, but I don't think
testimony
that's
of one witness. So if he's a witness to the crime,
You can't be the judge.
he can't be the judge.
Right.
Because right here, you just broke that.
I mean, it's good. I mean, it's good advice to not do it.
It's a stretch to say it's pulled directly from verse 30 here. So, next, not to accept a ransom to save a murderer from his sentence. From verse 31, take no ransom for life of another. In other words, you can't, if someone's due to be executed for murder, they can't essentially bribe a judge to say, okay, well, you're not going to be murdered. You're not going to serve the trial. You can,
Kind of like Mary Garland.
I don't know. It's forbidden to accept a ransom to save someone who's banished from a sentence. In other words, if someone was supposed to go to the city of refuge, they can't give money, so they don't have to go. If they did get away with it, not having to go to the city of refuge, what does that lead to, right? They'll be killed anyway because the Avenger of Blood has perfect right to kill them if they leave the city of refuge when the high priest is still alive. And that's directly out of the Torah. All right. So some of the phrases, words used in this portion, matot.
I got a curious question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I wonder if any of the cities, old cities of refuges are still there today. Because there's some ancient cities that we still have today. A lot of them don't have any. I wonder if any of the city of refuge did.
I don't know.
That's an interesting question.
Well, only 6 are in the land, and there's supposed to be 42 other ones.
Cities
Afterwards,
of
40,
refuge?
48.
Cities of refuge.
There's only
Isn't that right?
six. There's only 6 cities of refuge.
Right, but I think it's
3
40.
are in the land, and 3 are on the eastern side of the Jordan.
Yeah, but I think that our text said there's going to be 42 additional ones added, and up to a total of 48.
When the full territory is.
With the full territory from
all the way
Wadi to the river.
Euphrates.
Is Jerusalem one?
I don't think so. I think it'd be hard for the Jerusalem to be a city of refuge
It's not
because
a list at least of the 6,
well, the other ones because it weren't
but the other ones.
the other ones weren't listed at the time because they
Well,
hadn't
even,
been.
even of the 6, there was a
Hadn't
long
designated.
time when there were just what, 3? Until
Probably so. Yeah. Until
Is Hebron listed?
Sorry.
Hebron?
But I just kind of hit me. Not that it would mean the same thing today if one existed, but I'm just curious.
Mhm.
I wonder if there is a city, one of those still surviving today. Might be called something else now, or
It seems that in Western culture, the city of the it'd be hard to reinstitute that given the culture from where everyone who is essentially in Israel now came from, pretty much in the sense of it's been the job of not the individuals to take vengeance, but to go to the government for that.
yeah. Well, I mean, even the vengeance thing aside, just if that city is still around today, maybe under another name or something.
It's an interesting question.
Joplin?
Joplin, Missouri.
No. Haifa.
Joplin, yeah.
Haifa is what it's called today.
Jaffa.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so neder is the word that is usually translated as vow, with 2 categories: prohibited something that Torah permits, or making some equivalent of a Torah command, person making it. Something like, if Elohim does this, then I neder to do that. It's a bit different, similar to the word shavua, as in oath. Isar is the word for pledge. Yazer, helped. And Gilead or Gilad is rocky region. So, the first verses talk about the vow. It doesn't appear that there is a way out of a vow for a man. Question: when these nedarim are made in haste and or the critical situation has passed, how often do we forget, quote, all that came out of our mouths in order to do it?
Quickly and often.
The classic case would be like the foxhole prayers, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, what about daughters, wives, widows, and divorcees? There seems to be a double standard, right? The vows of daughters and wives can be forgiven or annulled on the day they're given, whereas widows and divorced women cannot.
It's not a double standard.
Different situation.
A widow and a divorcee are on their own. They have a covering.
They're essentially head of their own household
Exactly.
for tax purposes.
Daughters and wives are under their husband's authority.
Right.
So, I did forget I went. I gotta go get it.
Well,
Carry on.
I'll let you run it for you.
Okay, let's go. I will hurry.
Careful, that floor's wet down there. They're mopping it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cleaning. The cleaning crew's here.
Okay.
So this is the text talking about every vow and binding oath to humble herself, her husband may confirm it or her husband may annul it. So the questions come from CC asks, widows are supposed to be under the protection of the community, question mark. Is that right? What do you think?
What was her comment?
I think it means, are widows supposed to be under the protection of the community?
No,
I think it's what matters is
Protection,
the
maybe,
household.
but
but not a covering for a vow or an oath.
in the sense of,
We'll mow her grass and fix leaky roofs and stuff, but she says she's going to do something. She's going to do it.
you hear that? JD said he'll mow your grass.
And fix your leaky roof. But I will not annul your vow.
She says they were in the Mattot-Masei, under the protection of the community. Protection is different than covering for vows, though. Protection might definitely in the sense of a community protection of the widows and orphans, but it doesn't. But a widow is still she is essentially head of her household. There's no one that she reports to, so to speak, to annul that vow. So, question: we kind of answered this in the essentially in the reading plus the fun challenge. How long does a husband or father have to annul the vow? Just that day. So here's a question. What if the wife or the daughter is intent on keeping the vow her husband or father has annulled?
Guilt is on her head.
I would say that if she does it, okay. If she doesn't do it, okay. But it's no longer considered a binding vow or oath in that sense. So if she wants to keep it, she can strive to keep it. But if she doesn't keep it, it's not as if she's violating. She's not violating the vow.
Wouldn't that depend on what the vow was? Because if the vow ended up causing her to commit a sin,
I think we've studied in the past too, taking a vow of doing something. You can't take a vow to do something that is.
well,
That's a different thing.
Does it say that? It just says a vow.
So how do we
classes of vows?
Yeah, how do we talk about that?
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, I'm tracking. I just got to remember what we said, how we worked that out. Taking a vow to do something that's against Torah is a lot, right?
Well, they did. There were people that did that in the Mattot-Masei.
Sure.
We vowed to kill Paul, for example.
Yeah.
And
They vowed to not eat until they killed Paul.
The leader of Israel, who said, if God gives us the victory, I'll sacrifice the first thing that comes out of my house.
Yeah.
You should have never made that.
Yeah, and there's really divided in that sense of whether he did it or not, because there's a tradition
What
was
does
that
he
the
mean by
mourners.
sacrifice too? You can't sacrifice him. So he had to put her in the service of the Lord, obviously.
I'm not saying that's obvious.
Well,
Because why would there have been such a grievance? Go out and mourn.
yes, but at the same time, the Torah does not allow for human sacrifice.
Right. So it's a question of which basically it's going to be two sins, right?
So sacrifice on the altar.
But also, I think in the case of this, she's made a vow that's going to cause human sacrifice. It's also for that husband to stop it.
We'll say, for example, I'm thinking like the vow is I vow to marry Johnny Jones, and her dad says, "Nope, you're not keeping that vow."
She does it anyway.
And she says, I want to marry Johnny Jones. Okay, great. It's just not a vow. I guess you can keep saying, I really still vow. Okay, how many times you keep in the same day can they vow? How many times in the same day can a vow be taken and annulled?
I guess until right up to the brink of sunset.
She says, the very minute, just before sunset, I'm getting married. I want to marry that
Dad,
boy.
I
I
have
vowed-
something to tell you that I did, but I want to wait for a couple more minutes.
Well, it says in the day that he's made aware of it, I think, or alludes
The day that he's made aware of it.
Yeah,
So
I guess that's true.
it's almost the end of the day. So if I tell him 1 second, get the last word out of my mouth, 1 second
What?
before the sunset.
That would still be a rash vow.
Yeah, right.
Wash your mouth out. So here's a question: a husband and a father can annul a vow of a wife or unmarried daughter. Is it still in effect, and is it fair? Does it stand opposed to the quote new light of Galatians 3:28 that says there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free man, neither male nor female, for in union with Messiah Yeshua, you are all one.
It's
it. The
not.
gay community today could take that verse and mix it.
Oh, definitely could.
No, they really couldn't because they would be confused. They wouldn't know where they were at.
Plus, there's only one Torah for the native born in the years.
So
I don't think it's opposed.
no, I think that what this is saying is there still are such things as male and females, right?
Yep.
We kind of
There
know
absolutely
that. So what it's saying is there is not a precedence of one or the other in union with Messiah Yeshua, in the sense of you all have an equal weight of being
Yes.
loved in the kingdom. There are still Jews and non-Jews. There are still people who are enslaved and those who are not enslaved. So
Basically, all of you men.
So here's a Art Scroll commentary that may shed, well, let me say this. It's probably more heat than light, maybe, in this sense, I'll say. Because this takes an alternate view that I don't necessarily share, but it's the idea of the nullification of vows that is that essentially they could do it. In other words, here's what it says. The Torah chose to mention the leaders here because they had a special role to play in the matter of vows. For an individual expert, such as a tribal leader, has the authority to annul a vow or an oath. In the absence of such an expert, an ad hoc court of 3 laymen may make such a ruling, said Rashi. Nedarim, of course, is vows, and that is one of the books of, or the sections of the Talmud. That a tribunal of 3 may annul a vow is only alluded to in Scripture. It's a provision of the oral law transmitted to Moses at Sinai. The second topic of this passage is an oath. By means of an oath, one may either prohibit oneself or require oneself to perform an act. Conceptually, there was a great difference between between a neder and an oath. A neder changes the status of the object. For example, if I have made an apple forbidden to myself, the apple has the status of a forbidden food to me. Therefore, I may not enjoy the apple. In contrast, an oath places an obligation only on the person. For example, if I have sworn to eat an apple and there is a new obligation upon me, but the halakhic status of the apple itself is unchanged. So I don't necessarily disagree with the difference between an oath and a vow in this, but I don't see in the text even alluding to the idea that tribal leaders have the authority to free oaths.
Right.
I don't see that there in the scripture.
No.
So I don't know what they're leaving.
But I think also too here, at least my close circle of friends, we've all decided too that Kol Nidre has no meaning.
What?
Kol
Kol
Nidre has no meaning. It's not.
That's gonna mean maybe, I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's a little.
Kol Nidre is all vows, but
All vows are nullified at the Yom Kippur. All vows that you may have
Right.
taken. Kol Nidre has no basis in the Torah, but they do it every year. It's a really neat sounding song. Same thing.
Israel's been known for singing.
Us too.
Yeah. You know, though, then Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, "This is the thing which the Lord has commanded." So, definitely, I think they're wrong.
Well, the idea, I mean, what the rabbis comment on is in the event of the woman, like the daughter who was vowed to be sacrificed, was that they should have convened they should have convened a tribunal, or a tribal leader should have done the forgiveness of that vow, or or it was done. They're kind of different views on that. But it doesn't seem that a vow of a leader of Israel has a way to be undone. So vows and oaths, there is a connection to that within the 10 words. You shall not swear falsely by the name of the Eternal your God, for the Eternal will not clear one who swears falsely by his name. That's from the New JPS. There's a parallel in Devarim. It says, when you make a vow to the Eternal your God, do not put off fulfilling it, for the Eternal your God will require it of you, and you have incurred guilt, whereas you incur no guilt if you refrain from vowing. You must fulfill what has crossed your lips and perform what you have voluntarily vowed to the Eternal your God, having made the promise with your own mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the question in the judge's case. Was it a valid vow? Or in the sense, we kind of talked around this, but can someone make a vow for something forbidden to be permitted?
So we just talked about it.
Yeah. So here's what ArtScroll opined on this. Under no circumstances was Jephthah allowed to or permitted to sacrifice his daughter, nor could he obligate her to a course of behavior. Jephthah should have gone to Phinehas to have his vow annulled, according to ArtScroll.
Or does it say Phinehas could have annulled the vow?
Again, that was quote implied, I guess, in the thought. I mean, that's the question, right? I don't necessarily see that as being part of the text that would allow Pinchas to forgive that vow. So in Joshua, talking about the Gibeonites, here's another vow example. We swore to them by the Eternal, the God of Israel, therefore we cannot touch them.
Even though they were tricked into swearing to that, they still had to abide by what they swore to.
So the town of the Gibeonites, Kiryat Yearim, city of forests, is adjacent to an Arab town, Abu Ghosh, which actually may be the ancient Kiryat Yearim. Abu Ghosh was the only Arab town to fight alongside Israel during Israel's War of Independence in 1947. Wow. So they perhaps stood by that vow. I'm not sure if Gibeonites were in that Arab city at the time, but that was the only city that stood alongside Israel in that war. So that's interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
So Matthew 5 also talks about vows. In this text, it says, it has Yeshua saying, well, I can read the text. It says, and you've heard their fathers were told, do not break your oath, keep your vows out and I. But I tell you not to swear at all, not by heaven, because it is God's throne, not by the earth, because it is his footstool, not by Jerusalem, because it is the city of the great king. And don't swear by your head, because you can't make a single hair white or black. Just let your yes be simple yes, and your no a simple no. Anything more than this has its origin in evil. So since Torah allows vows and oaths, is Yeshua now annulling the Torah? Well,
He's affirming it.
I would say it's better affirmed when you look at, for example, Shem Tov, which says, again, you've heard what was said to these long ago, you shall not swear by my name falsely, but you shall return to Yud-Evave, your oath. But I say to you not to swear in vain in any matter, neither by heaven, because it is the throne of Elohim, nor by the earth, because of the footstool of his feet, nor by Jerusalem, because it is the city of Elohim, nor by your head, if you are not able to make one hair white, because you're not able to make one hair white or black. But let your words be yes, or no, no. Anything in addition to this is evil. So how's this different from the Greek version? Well, this says just don't swear. He's not saying don't swear. He says don't swear
Flippantly.
Yeah, or falsely.
As it,
Yeah.
and we see that a lot today. Well, I swear to God, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That's flippant, vowing.
Yeah.
Lightly vowing.
And it seems to me, if someone has to swear for you to believe them, it probably means they're not very trustworthy.
Yeah.
So there's some too, rabbis that say that doing a thing more than 2 or 3 times consistently is the same thing as taking a vow. As an example, showing up at a certain place for, say, 3 days in a row to hand out breakfast burritos to homeless people. If you've done it that many times, it becomes a vow because now people are counting.
Yeah. So that means you got to show up from then on. That day,
Well,
that time.
I've heard that
You didn't
the
say
phrase of being called a minhag or a custom,
Yeah.
but not necessarily the level of vow. And
Same. This rabbis will say it's the same way.
I don't see-
By your actions, you have vowed. You vowed to do it by your actions.
I can't see that. If you
It's
didn't
there.
say it,
Well, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm
Yeah,
saying
that's
Right.
interesting.
I just can't see how they can say that, because what if you're injured?
Yeah, especially if you haven't come out and said you can do it every time. But so we try to be really careful what we say. Like
That's the key.
I don't say, hey man, I'll be at Beit Tefillah today at 4 o'clock. I say, hey man, I'm planning on being at Beit Tefillah.
I think I said that.
I'm gonna try to be there today.
we believed you.
Yeah.
Therefore, it was an oath.
You showed up. Next week.
Can't come to me and say, hey man, I thought you said you were coming. No. I said I was gonna try to come.
So Gad and Reuben, or Gad and Reuven, petitioned Moshe. They said to him, then they came to him and said, here's what they said, quote, we will build here sheepfolds for our livestock and cities for our little ones. Moses' response was, build for yourselves cities for your little ones and sheepfolds for your sheep, and do what you have promised. So there's a difference between those two, right?
Yes.
One is we're all about building our livestock. Moshe says he reverses the order, what they should have been thinking about. Their kids, not necessarily from what the riches of the land is going to bring them for their sheep.
Right.
So if the numbers are right, according to Joshua 22, it took 7 years to conquer the land, 7 years more to divide it up. So the warriors from Gad and Reuben did not return to the eastern side of the Jordan River until 14 years later. Now, that's a long time. So they may have, after it was conquered, they may have let them go. It doesn't really say when they're allowed to go back.
Because their part was already divided.
Yeah, so they may have been gone for 7 years, not 14. Right. Somewhere between 7 and 14 years is what they're gone for. So 7 years is considerable in terms of the time spent. It wasn't just done.
They didn't say they were going to stick around for it to get divided. They said they were going to stick around for conquer.
Yeah, and who said, does it really, when they said, we want to, this is our land, we want this land, did they really mean, we're not going to fight with you?
It seems like everyone in the Torah, it seems like Yah thinks they were saying they weren't going to go fight. That's why I was angry with them for saying it.
That's a good point. It wasn't just Moses thinking that's what they did.
It seems to, I think it says that Yah was angry at them for saying that. So he understood their intention as this is great sheep land, man. We're staying here. Yeah, you gotta get other stuff. We're happy with this. We don't need that. It's fine. Saying the first Calvin's War. Okay, but they are treacherous. But they acted treacherously against the God of their fathers and played the harlot after the God of the peoples of the land, whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Tilgat-Pilneser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away into exile, namely the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Halah, Habor, Harah, and to the river of Gazon to this day. So essentially, the first ones that were taken by the Assyrians
Or the ones,
were the ones on the wrong side of the river.
That's a bad time to be on that side of the river.
So you ask about Masei, and this is where the first verse comes from. It's 33, verse 1. Earl, you asked about that. This is where the dividing line was between the two portions. These are the journeys. That's where typically is translated for Masei, Ele Masei. These are the journeys. So journeys or stages. Some translations read stages.
So where exactly was Manasseh at? Where was Reuben? Where was Gad? Where was Manasseh exactly on the east side? Was Manasseh up by Lake Gezeret, or were they south? Where was Reuben? In the middle by the Arnon, or?
Can't remember.
I don't know, but if you consult the Book of Maps in your Bible, you'll probably find it.
They don't have that map.
Book of Maccabees.
The Book of
Maccabees.
that's worth a drum roll.
I don't see no map of these in this book. Sorry.
I got it right here. What was your question?
Where was the half tribe of Manasseh? Was it north of the Arnon by Lake Gilead? Or is that?
It was northwest of the lake.
Okay. And then it came down to Gad and then Reuben? Or was it?
Then it came down to Gad.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Manasseh was in the far north, on the east side, and just directly across from Naphtali and Asher. And then down below is God, and then down below is Reuben.
Lake Galilee feeds the Jordan River, correct? What
It
feeds
seems
Lake
to.
Galilee?
I don't know.
I thought there was a river that shed that one through up north.
I'm not seeing one. on
They
the
call it
map.
something
Doesn't mean
about
there isn't.
And it was a place where maybe a Sermon on the Mount in northern Galilee was. And supposedly up in the mountains up there was a small stream or something that fed the lake.
Maybe.
It was supposedly a
No,
place of worship for Pan, God Pan.
I'm not an expert on that. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Wilkie.
So here's some names of this portion. So we get the 42 stops in the wilderness in this reading of it. Masei, Ramses, Sukkot, you see that. Etam, the border of the sea. Pi-Hacherot, house of wells, between Migdol and the sea. And the word Migdol, of course, means tower. Pi-Hacherot, this was taken from, I think, a Bible dictionary, a Fawcett Bible dictionary, which says that the listing of the names of the stops is partly Egyptian, partly Semitic. Through house, P of wells. P is house in, I guess, Egyptian. The watering place in the desert. So this is one of the places listed. Now now it's called Ajrud, a fortress, the large well of good water. So the next slides kind of talked about some of the names of these places. Marah is bitter, Elim is palms. Now, when Cece read it, she read the word, her translation had Red Sea. The Hebrew is Yam Suf, sea of the end, sea of sweeping away.
I heard something pretty interesting. We got the extended version, whatever that pattern's evidence, and on the sea stuff when it comes to Yam Suf, he did show where sea of the end, sea of the whirlwind, whatever, but sea of the end. He said because it was Solomon that built a bunch of ships and put them in the Yam Suf. The only place that could have been was around Elat. He couldn't have put it over in the Suez Canal. He couldn't have put it in the bitter lakes or whatever, just north of there, of the Suez Canal area.
Why would you, right?
Yeah. Dried up and stuck.
Yeah.
You're not going anywhere. So I think the sea of the end is, to me, pretty close.
In the sense of the end of Pharaoh's army, how we look at it, and how that was destroyed. Most translations that I've seen, like English translations, read the wilderness of sin, and so people are confused by that. But Sin is the text, and some have said this is thorns, possibly clay or mud, but others look at it as related to the word Sinai or Sinai, which can is often thought to be related to the moon. Dafka Alush Rephidim, resting places. This is a commentary by Targum Jonathan, and it says, their hands were Raphim, neglectful of the words of the Torah. That's how Targum Jonathan translates that. Amalek attacked them there, unprovoked, those Amalekites. Sinai, wilderness of shining or shining. Sinu is moon in Babylonian, so that's where the idea possibly comes from. Say again? No, I think this tells you that they really don't know the meaning of it. There is so much speculation between either shining of the moon or thorny. Seen, wilderness of seen meant thorny, or possibly, I said moon because I think it's related to Sinai, if it is related to Sinai, rather. Kivrot HaTava'ah, the graves of the lust. Hatarot, Rithma, valley of the broom brushes. Of course, Targum Jonathan calls it the place of many juniper trees. Rimon Peretz, the Rimon is the pomegranate, Peretz is the breach. Livna, whiteness, transparency. Some say pavement. So what's another word that you might know that's related to Livna? Levan, sure. I'm thinking Levona. And certainly the derivative of Lebanon, same sort of idea for that. Risa, dew or worm of ruins. Okay. A lot of these, it's hard to tell, but some words are clear. You can see the word kahal written right in that word there, kala'ata. Mount Shefer or Seper. You can see the relationship to the English word sapphire. Harada, fear or fright. Machalot, assemblies. Tachat, typically underneath, but it can be in place of or instead of. You may have seen the term Mashiach Tachat, is the in place of Messiah, aka the anti-Messiah. Tarak, Abraham's father. Mitzgah, sweetness or place of sweetness. Hashmona, fatness. Mozerot, bonds or bands. Bnei Yakan, sons of twisting, or possibly wise sons, kind of the opposite way of Yakan might be twisting or might be listed as wise. Har Hagidgad, the hole or cavern of the cleft. Yot Batah, Abrona, passage or ford. From the word abar, to cross over. You recognize the word abar, to cross over. It's also a root word of the word for Hebrew. It's Yom Geber, the backbone of a giant or a man, Geber being man or giant, or Tower of the Rooster. Remember that we talked in the past about when the rooster crows 3 times. Well, the word gever can be a giant or a man or a rooster in that same word with different meanings. Kadesh, you may recognize that as being related to the word kadosh, so set apart. Mount Hor, Har Hor, the mount upon the mountain.
Yeah.
Salmona, gloomy, narrow, another idea of thorns in the skin, or squalid. Punon, distracted, helpless, or darkness. It's modern day Fenan, Jordan. That's where Yah sent burning serpents. Obot, holes dug for water bottles. Yeha Avarim, the heaps of ruins of crossing over. Dibon Gad, the wasting, pining, or washing. This is where the Moabite stone was found. Dibon Gad. Almon Diblatama, concealing the 2 cakes of figs. The mountains of Avrim before Nebo. Nebo is related to the word Navi, or prophet, or possibly far-sighted, far-seeing. Nebo is also a Babylonian deity. You can see that in Nebuchadnezzar. So, you can maybe backtrack here for a second, but the idea of not pronouncing the names of foreign deities, you can't read the Torah then if you go to Mount Nebo in that sense. Because Nebo is also a Babylonian deity. The name of the place is called Nebo, where Moshe was buried.
I was driving a truck. There's a place east here, quite a ways, called Nebo, a town called Nebo.
Yeah.
Good there. Chicken farms over there.
Tornado bangles.
I think I've seen a town called Iraq somewhere in the Mojave Desert area.
Oh, really?
It fits.
Iraqi place.
Plains of Moab by the Jordan near Jericho. Moab, you recognize Mo. The mem is from, and Av, Moab, from father. Yarden is from the word yarad, to descend, or watery place. I think there's a word mess up there. Jericho is said to be either a place of fragrance or from the word Yerak, which is devoted to the moon. Seat of Canaanite moon worship, so that may be the reason for that. Bet Hashmot, house of the desolation, and Abel Shittim, the meadow of the acacias. Now I know that there are various views of what that word Shittim might mean. Oaks is another way I think it's been translated as that. Acacias is like the New American Standard version of that. I'm not sure. Other translations of different names of types of trees. So that ends the 42 stops. This next slide is kind of more it's from a teaching, so to speak. So this slide, the next slide continues it. It's our individual journey. It's on the idea of journeys. It says, the rabbis teach the journey of the children of Israel from Egypt to the promised land is a metaphor for our own journey as individual Israelites, from leaving the straits of the birth canal to the many years of our life that we spend wandering in the desert, sometimes listening to the voice, but often rebelling and making mistakes, to the moment of our own death, entering into the promised land. Our life may be analyzed in terms of these 42 journeys. It is possible to identify each person's journey through life with the 42 stages of the journey described in Bamidbar 33. Again, a teaching, not necessarily scripture, but a teaching about how we can relate to the Torah. This is another teaching. This was a teaching from Brad Scott, the number 42, the advent of the seed. He says, Matthew reveals to us that there are 42 generations between Abraham and the Messiah. We certainly know that from Scripture that the Messiah is the seed of the woman, but this same seed is also consistently identified with Abraham and Isaac. The seed is the Messiah, according to Galatians 3:16. It may also, we know what 42 is repeatedly associated with the second coming of Messiah in terms of like number of months, for example. It may be interesting to know that the number 42 occurs 14 times in Scripture. This is from a traditional teaching, the journey to our future redemption. The portion alludes that all the major exiles, the children of Israel, were destined to undergo in their history. The initial letters of Mattot-Masei ben Yisrael, these are the journeys of the children of Israel, alludes to the Aleph, for the word for Edom, which is the current exile, the Mem from Masei, Mitzrayim, the Beit from Bavel or Babylon, and the Yud for Israel is the Yud associated here with Yavon or Greece. So what was the Greek exile? What do you think that's talking about?
Would that be from Syria out of the north?
Yes, in a sense. It's talking about Alexander's empire and the exile basically ended with the Maccabean revolt. Yeah. So which exile is not listed above?
The Assyrian? Or I should say the one in person?
I would say
the current.
Well, the current exile says is Rome because since the destruction of the Second Temple. But what is not shown here is where the Assyrians took the 10 quote unquote 10 lost tribes. Doesn't even list that in there.
Well, they were the first to go. They were gone a couple hundred years before Babylon.
So you can double tap it and say that Aleph would be referring to Assyria there also.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Because that also is our current exile.
3 or more established.
It's a minhag. Okay. Continuing also in the same vein, the letters Ele Masei or Aleph Mem, which points to several pairs of redeemers, Aharon and Moshe, Esther and Mordecai, yay, and Eliyahu and Mashiach.
That's stretching it for Esther and Mordecai.
I like it.
Oh, I like it too, I would just say. But Aharon, he was buried and died long before Moshe.
Not that long.
A year or more.
Well, this doesn't say they have to live and die together.
True.
This is but a speck of time.
Our life is but a speck of time. Maybe even a quarter of a speck.
So according to their goings forth, it really is the kind of continuing on that same thing of their the journeys according to their going forth is the journeys of our future redemption in rabbinic thought, in the sense of the word motzahem, their goings forth, alludes to the future goings forth of Bnei Israel, our future redemptions. The placement of Masahem, their journeys, before Lemotzehem, according to the goings forth, alludes to the fact that our constant travels in exile hasten the eventual going forth. And lest one lose faith in the redemption because of our suffering, Moshe mentioned that Israel already went forth in Egypt. Surely, then we'll be redeemed again.
May it be so even in our day.
Amen. brings us to Dixie's question. What's going on here with those skeletons of monkeys behind me?
She's at the zoo.
Nope. She is at,
Medicine Park.
no,
Said an elementary school.
nope.
That's the only zoo I know around here.
Your bedroom.
Clearly, you've not been to my house lately.
There are, I would say there are few monkey skeletons in the zoo. If you notice behind her, those are skeletons of monkeys.
Depends whether it's an old zoo or not.
It's a picture of something somewhere. Right?
It's, yeah, it
Wait a minute,
is.
Medicine
No, it's
Park
not a picture.
Aquarium,
It's-
right?
No,
I said medicine.
We ain't got no monkeys in Medicine Park.
it's not in Medicine Park.
Yeah, I was
In,
in Texas.
in Oklahoma City, there is a museum of osteography or something like that. It's called the Skeleton Museum.
Huh.
There are skeletons of pretty much everything you can imagine. Over the ceiling, there's like a whale and a killer whale and some other things up there.
Oh, cool.
Sure, I want to go there.
I would be scared.
Dixie's not afraid.
It's
Look,
A pretty dead place.
it's
all about that.
it's a rocking place.
Yeah, it's a rocking place.
If you
Don't throw
if you
stones.
listen to dead
They
places-
sell rocks there too, by the way. There's a they show us
Don't
some
throw stones.
agates.
Maybe it bones.
Museum of Osteology, CC says. It's not osteography or whatever I said. Osteology.
Planes
Oh,
got
it's
a little
geography.
more complicated.
You know what she was thinking right there, right? I'd like to have some bones.
Oh, yeah.
Well, out of the picture, just would be on the picture we're looking at it on her left side, be her right side. There is a not skeleton, but there's actual a stuffed leopard that's standing right there.
When she's looking at it.
Well, it's on the other side. She's looking away from it. She did do some good sniffing on it when she got there. To the other side of that is a lion, which she didn't. So
She's like, what you bring me into?
just didn't. Obviously the leopard is bigger than her, so.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's more like a cat or not. I didn't ask. So, what are your other questions about anything we've discussed or not discussed?
I have 0 questions.
It is not of the law.
I think we're far. Yeah, it's almost 8, but I think it's like a 8:47 or something like that.
I need to get home. I'm traveling tomorrow.
All right, we're not gonna wait around for that. So let's pray. But thank you for allowing us to midrash on your word today. Thank you for the blessing of being able to study in freedom. We thank you in Yeshua's name. Amen.
First,
Nice to see you, buddy.